So today is a first, I would say, proposition for tackling this big issue of the environmental impacts of our digital uses and tools. Obviously there's like different topics, and I would say probably the artificial intelligence topic is now the elephant in the room when we start to talk about this digital impact. So just in order for you not to have any frustration, this is not the exact program, but this is what David, that Elisabetta was mentioning, was foreseeing for the 4 cycles. Obviously, some of those topics are going to overlap, but just to make sure that we are all on the same line, that today we are really focusing on our practices in the workplace. And there will be other sessions to go deeper in terms of AI, so in terms of what are the practices now and the regulations, but also comparison also with mobility and digital, and also all the artistic side, which I will not tackle today. And it's also today like the first, this first seminar is really to browse a bit about all the issues we might have in the workplace, but this is going to help us to start thinking about what could be some kind of a checklist that we could have as an organization, as networks, or as informal groups also thinking about this. And the idea is really to build on this from one seminar to the other. Just a few words on my side also, so that for those that don't know me yet, that you know where I'm talking to you from. So I run this organization, the Green Room, which I founded in 2016, and we are really specialized on environmental issues in the music sector mainly, but of course this allows us also to work with the performing arts in general. And one of our specificities also is that we never work with individuals. So let's say we will not work with one venue or one festival, but always with collaborative and collective projects. So be it networks, be it programs to support career development for artists. And in this so in these areas of working, one aspect is what I call action research. And this allowed us to start working on the digital impact first of the music sector, but of course many things can also apply to other sectors. And I will show you after also, but this allowed us to publish a guide which is called STOMP, so Sustainable Tools for Online Music Practices. And that was the base for our work and research on a European scale mostly, but I will come back to this after. The main reason we started to work on this issue at the beginning was really because we were very much confronted to this idea that going digital equals going green. This was something that was even in some of the official publication of the EU, like the Going Green, the study about Creative Europe and Erasmus+. The digital aspect of our practices was really not tackled in a proper way, I would say. And also most of the recommendations would be like going online would mean being more sustainable, which is obviously not always the case. It can be in some situations, but now also with the rise of AI and different practices, this is less and less the case. And this immaterial side is also very much emphasized by the semantic that we use, no? Like cloud, wireless, virtual, Ethereum. So all this, the imagination we have around this is like we don't see any traces, but yet data is deeply material because it's being hosted, it's being powered, and cool down in very physical infrastructures like data centers. So in short, we can say like every file, every stream, every AI prompt relies on energy, relies on rare earth and metals, relies on water. And behind every cloud or every click, there is a data center, there is a flow of water and electricity. So the digital world isn't dematerials, but it's just somehow displaced. And this is important when we start to calculate our carbon footprint, because if we take the scale of the world and how this displacement is being very much illustrated by the case of producing our phones and our screens, for instance. Most of those devices are being manufactured in China, and this will impact China's carbon footprint and not ours. So when we say, for instance, in most of the countries in Western Europe that our carbon footprint is becoming lower and lower as a country, it's also that a lot of those things that we totally rely on for our work practices are just being displaced and being accounted for another country. So this is on a general aspect, of course. And the other aspect that I mean, we all have it in mind somehow, but sometimes it's not so clear. And because this illusion also of going online, meaning reaching everyone, well, actually, there's still only a bit less than 70% of the population worldwide that does have access to internet. We have obviously very extreme situations like at the other end of the connectivity spectrum with North Korea, which continues to have internet still blocked for everyday citizens. But it's also the case of quite a lot of countries where you will have less than 10% of the population, be it in Somalia, in South Sudan, so less than 10% of the population that do use internet today. So this imbalance is also important to also keep in mind when talking about the digital impact. In terms of physical impact, what is important to keep in mind also is this phase of exponential digital growth. We talk about 6 or 7% of growth per year. So talking digital is really talking about faster, bigger growth all the time. And obviously the impact on the environment that goes with it also is totally exponential. If we look at, so I've put some numbers there, you can come back to that. The idea is not to dig so much into this, but for now, we are around 4 to 6% of the world carbon footprint, which is made by our digital use. And this depends on the studies. And we also say that for the digital in the office, so these are numbers from 2024, it represents already 60% of a European's sustainable annual budget. So our carbon budget that we should reach as a European. Now the digital in the office represents 60% of this budget. In 22, it was only 40%. So you can see this growth. So this is why it is so important and why it matters to tackle this issue, be it for cultural organizations, of course, because of this link that we have, for instance, with our audience, which is very much relying more and more on digital, and obviously all the digital tools that we depend on in terms of admin, communication, production, coordination. So it's not so much the question of if we use digital, but really how do we use it? This growth is also very much shown by this amount of pieces of equipment that we use. Even just 10, 15 years ago, it was basically a few phones, screens, computers, video games, and that was it. Right now, 15 years later, pretty much everything from the washing machine, the fridge, everything is connected to the internet. And this is, we say that's around 34 billion pieces of equipment with around 4.1 billion of users. So this means around 8 pieces of equipment per users. But obviously, this average equipment level hides very large disparities depending on the geographical areas that we would observe. This creates different issues, and on top, of course, of this carbon footprint, there's this issue of waste. So e-waste, which is very difficult to quantify, but also very difficult to manage in terms of how can we recycle, where these e-waste is being disposed. So it's like all this life cycle of our devices that is very important, from where we are going to get all the materials that we need. So I was talking about this rare earth or metals. So of course this impact on the environment through extraction in mines, which also has very significant social impacts. I took here 2 examples, one in the Andes, but also the Jadar mine in Serbia that you might have heard of quite recently. So it really has this damage, environmental damage, of course, but changes in terms of land use and social dynamics, which are also important to keep in mind. So because of the numbers, so what I was mentioning, 34 billion, the user equipment is the main source of impact of the digital world. So our screens, computers, phones, compared to data centers, for instance. Right now in the world, we have around 9,000 data centers. So if you compare this to 34 billion, this is where the difference is, why this the equipment has the biggest source of impact. This manufacturing concentrates the most of the impact, again, because of the extraction, about the transportation of all this material. This is what makes this impact the bigger. And then comes the electricity consumption of the equipment, which is usually around 30% of the impact. But you also have water consumption and the contribution to the depletion of resources, which is also very important, that we do not quantify in terms of carbon impacts. These are numbers, so I put you the source there. So it's a study from a French organization called Green IT. These are numbers from 2021. So we don't have the exact studies right now in comparison, but because of AI, we require bigger and bigger data centers, more and more data centers, which are very greedy in terms of CO2 emissions, but also in terms of water consumption. So this is something to keep in mind, that AI is also changing this dynamic, and probably the manufacture of data centers and their consumption of electricity is going to get higher and higher in this hierarchy that you have here. We can see that also if we start to compare some of our practices, like very basic ones. We had for some time these recommendations that we should clean our mailboxes to lower our carbon footprint. This is something that is probably very good to do for different reasons, but as you can see, this is not what will have the biggest impact and where you will have the biggest action, or at least the most efficient action that you can have on your carbon footprint. So if you compare it, for instance, so one email with one attachment of 1 MB, which is already quite a big attachment, that's going to be 0.03 grams of CO2, which is really minor. And even if you multiply this to the numbers of emails you would send in 1 year, this is still quite minimum if you compare it to other practices. So I've put here like a 10-minute video, but also a chat GPT query that would emit already 2 to 3 grams of CO2 per query. So that's about 10 to 15 times more than if you would do it through Google search, for instance. And then you would have, again, the manufacturing of a smartphone or a laptop. And there you can see that the amounts are really very significant for a laptop. So that would be around 500 kilograms. So that's 1/4 of our annual budget, ideal annual budget. Like we should reach 2 tons per habitant in Europe. That would be the way to reach the objectives of the Paris Agreement. So as you can see, if you buy a laptop, that's already 1/4 of your annual budget. I've also added here a little study that comes from the Carnegie Mellon University that also shows different practices in terms of text generating or video generating. And that's what you can see, the little gray thing on the right. So let's say if you make a mid-journey image generation, this is the equivalent in terms of electricity consumption as recharging your phone to 100%. So when I talk about exponential impacts, this is also with those tools that we might be using. Another dimension which is very important and also comes, so I'm not sure we don't have actually a very, I would say, a very good translation, because that would come from the French one, like sobriété, but digital sobriety in this sense would mean like being really intentional and selective about how we use digital tools. So it's not about using less. It can be, but it's not, because yeah, there's some things we cannot do without, but it's really about using better and being aware of the consequences or of the impacts, and just making more enlightened decisions. So this is something that we will be able also to tackle during the work, the little work groups that we'll have. But like the 3 key principles would be sufficiency before efficiency. So asking ourselves, do we really need this tool, this update, this meeting, etc.? That's the same idea behind it. Lightness by design. So that would be more with people you might collaborate with for your website, for instance. Do you want to eco-design your website? What kind of decisions you will make? But it's also smaller files, simple visuals, having like a video if you want to promote a show, but you know that your audience is probably going to watch the trailer on their phones. Do you need a super high quality, like 8K video, or maybe 4K or less would be sufficient? And then the last part, which I'll come back to in a second, is about this shared responsibility. So really, it's about also involving the whole team in defining what could be enough, or what does enough mean for your organization. Where are the specific tasks, for instance, where you cannot do without, I don't know, using 2 screens, or having specific needs. But this is something that should, in my opinion, be really discussed also between all members in the organization. So when I talk about this going from individual to collective culture, there are different ways. And the idea is really to think about also what we call co-benefits. So that's something that comes from the scientific working on climate change that say that it's always good to look at measures that you might take for, let's say, mental health or other things, but will have also benefits on the environmental impact. So that's the idea, but that's also the idea behind not creating a new tool. Like the idea is not for you like to start to track your carbon footprint specifically on your digital use, but maybe to use some tools or some roadmaps of things that you already have in place and to use them for this. So it can be, I've put some examples here, but it can be like internal guidelines for responsible digital practices. Sometimes organizations will have already some kind of digital charter or remote working charter. So this can be added to those. I'm not aware of all the work or labor law in every country, but if I take the example of France, we have one document that we have to have within any organization, which is called the DUERP. So that will be a unique document where we list all the risks that we might have in the workplace. And we can include also all the risks that are connected to digital use. So let's say like staying the whole day in front of the screen, but we can go deeper into this and start to think about the right to deconnect, also like different sustainability practices that could be also beneficial for this. And another one can be also if you have a purchasing policy as an organization, you can totally include those guidelines into this. Another practice that I mentioned here, which is always a good one, whatever the topic here in terms of sustainability, but about peer learning and sharing tips that each of us might have. Each of us always know like some specific tool that we can use like to lower the quality of videos, for instance, those kind of little tips. It can also be good for bigger organization to have someone which will be a referent that can be also leading a working group, internal working group to start thinking about this. And what we do within our organization, and which I find very useful because of course things are evolving so quickly, to regularly review tools and subscriptions and to look at who's behind also every tools that we are using. We saw this with social media, with trying to get out of WhatsApp, for instance, because of either political, ethical things that we might not align with in our organizations, and we decide to quit those. It can be the same with social media to make choices. And that's something also that needs to be discussed within the organizations.